see how this works. Hi, and we are actually live right now. I thought it was going to do a countdown, but hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Greet everyone. Yes, just wanted to welcome everyone to another evening with us here at live on Liberty TV, UIC Liberty TV, where we can come and have some lively discussions, some lively reasonings about real issues that are going on and how we can actually engage, not just listen, not just talk about it, but be about it. And I have with me in the studio today some people, some gentlemen who are about it. They are doing the work. And I'm going to introduce them and give them an opportunity to share a little bit about themselves, what they're doing. Before I do that, I want to go to you, Louis, so you can welcome your listeners.
Absolutely. Want to take the time this evening to welcome. It is 7 o'clock. We're going to welcome everyone this evening to another discussion as we, try to understand ourselves and things that's going on in and around the Caribbean community, Jamaica in particular, and also Haiti. This evening we are going to talk some finances, what's going on with Jamaica and different programs. But we're also going to talk about the refugee people, the refugees that are in Jamaica that enter the border of Jamaica and seeking asylum and seeking to have a life in Jamaica. We're going to talk to everyone about that. So we want to welcome all our listeners from across the world. Welcome this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Louis, and welcome to your listeners as well. Yes, so I'm going to start by doing a little introduction of each of the members. But before I go to each of you, can you tell me what your organization is all about? And then we can kind of lead into what is it you're doing here in Jamaica. Captain Severus, would you be able to lead us off with that intro, please?
All right. Well, first, I want to say thank you again for the invite. All right. I am Captain Severus. I'm with Israel United in Christ. All right. We are a Bible-based organization. All right. It was founded by Bishop Nathaniel in 2003. It's under the tutorship of Bishop Nathaniel, Bishop Yawasab, and Bishop Kanai, and we have a slew of deacons as well. All right. So we are a Bible-based organization, but like you mentioned, we are hands-on. We don't just speak it, we also do it. We are action-based. Wherever the need is, we like to be hands-on, boots on the ground. That's our first thought. But the mission is to bring repentance, an organized nation to our people. Because at the moment, if you see the decayed state of our people, you can actually see it. You see the pain, you see the poverty, you see the broken families, you see where one set of people is fleeing the violence from one set of one place to another. You see it. All right. So we here to show the people the solution through the scriptures, and because we believe and we can show you where the Bible is speaking directly to that lost people. We are those people. So we like to bring that information to them directly and then also give them solutions to change. Because at the end of the day, the reason for that condition is because we have destroyed ourselves. We violated God's commandments. And so now the result or the judgment is the decayed state that we see now. But again, I want to thank you for inviting me. I am Captain Severus, so we're here for some solutions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Captain. And I'm going to actually go into, yes, I know that we have been disobedient and all those other things, but in many cases, we have been put in a state that is now perpetuating itself and creating this situation. So I'd like to speak a little bit to that later on as we kind of move along, okay? So I'd like to introduce the person who's really been engaging with me the most over what's happening here in Jamaica and the Haitians in Jamaica and the work that they're doing. And that's Mike. So Mike, could you open your mic and introduce yourself And can you just also share where are you from in the U.S.? Where do you hail from, and how is it that you have come to be a part of this project?
Oh yeah, thank you for having me on the show too as well. Name is Officer Michael, living here in Orlando, Florida. I got to give credit to Brother Lewis. Met Brother Lewis some years ago through his network, and me and him have been collaborating on many projects. He allows us to teach the truth of the Bible on his platform, Caribbean Rhythms radio station. I have a show every Tuesday that I do called It's Nation Time, and actually going to extend that show to Barbados. So we'll have some brothers out in Barbados that's doing the show. But yeah, that's how I got hooked up basically with you through a town hall meeting that Mr. Lewis had concerning the situation that the refugees are in Jamaica. So that's where that came from. But like Captain Severa said, we understand the reason why we're in the condition is because us ourselves has allowed ourselves to be oppressed by breaking God's commandments. God is like a simple thing. Get Luke 4:16 real quick. A simple thing as the day of when we're supposed to worship. We choose to not worship the day that God gave us to worship on. Therefore, we cry for blessings, but how can God bless us if we're not doing the thing that he said do? So quickly, just read Luke 4:16. And we're all believers in Christ. So our organization is called Israel United in Christ. What day did Christ worship on? Read that real quick. Luke 4:16.
The book of Luke chapter 4 and verse 16. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read.
So Christ went to church on the Sabbath day, which is the seventh day of the week. And we all know that. But yet we still choose to worship on the first day of the week. So like as you mentioned before, the situation that we're in, a lot of it, we can't point fingers so much. We got to look at ourselves first. And then we go out and look at the people who we know we're oppressed. We know who's oppressing us. But the thing again is, why has God allowed us that to happen to us is because we're breaking his commandments. So another thing that Lewis has allowed me to teach the truth of the Bible on his station. So that's where we got started from, getting, learning of how this situation has come about with the refugees in Jamaica.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I do recall that meeting. I think it was a Chamber of Commerce meeting and several businesses, and you were able to link up that way. Great, thank you for that. And as a result of our connections, you have an extension of you here in Jamaica as well. And it is that branch of your church that is working currently with the Haitian refugees here in Jamaica. So I'd like to give an opportunity for Officer Ronell to introduce himself and talk about some of their work here.
Good evening. All right. I'm Officer Ronell. Nice to be on your show. Yes. So as you know, we are a part of UIC here, a branch here. So as Captain Severus mentioned, our job is to go out and to reach our brothers and sisters, not just giving scriptures only, but to really help in the physical struggle. When Christ was on the earth, he did not just teach the word, but he fed the people, he healed the people, he clothed the people. And that is our mission. Our mission is to get them to understand why we are suffering the way we are suffering. Because once we understand why we are suffering, then it is much easier for us to get the solution. Right? We understand that we are the Israelites. We understand why we are suffering. We pull together as a people, and we share our resources, and we take care of each other. So that's the mission, really.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. And you say you pull together as a people. When you say pull together as people, what does that mean? What are you actually doing here in Jamaica when you say pull together? What are you doing?
All right. So first of all, we teach the word, right? We teach the word, and we let the brothers, the sisters know that we are here for them. All right.
You're-
So when
you're-
we invite them to come and be amongst us to join. Okay, it went out. Yeah, so we invite them to come and be a part of us. All right.
Okay.
Growing up, the way how I grew up here in Jamaica in the early 90s, you know, it was a community where we care for each other. We would share what we have, you know, but today it's not like that anymore. Everybody is looking out for themselves. All right. So we want to make sure that we are on one playing field, that we are all, you know, that we all have the same mind.
Yes.
Right. So when you come amongst us, you have the mind to help, you have the mind to look out for each other, and you're not just thinking about yourself and what you can get. Right. So we come together as a community, you understand, and the resources that we have, we pull together and we make sure that everyone is taken care of. But you have to, you know, come amongst us. You cannot just be a stranger and then, you know, reap the benefit. If you want the benefit of the family, you have to come and join
You're part
the
of the
family.
Part of the family.
Understood.
Karen, if I could just sort of ask you to go back a little bit and explain to the audience what's going on. Give us an update. What's going on with the refugees in Jamaica? What is their status legally, and we are there. We have sort of not get into that for a while on the network. You've been asking us, give us a status report from your end as the person who's on the ground, along with all the different groups and people that are assisting you. Where and what's going on with the Asian refugees in Jamaica?
Okay. I'm going to thank you for that, and I'm going to give an update on where it was, because when I first came on your show, it was the refugees were at a space where the government was getting ready to send them back to Haiti, and the attorneys put an injunction in order to stop that from happening. So that was the time that we met. We organized, went down there, saw what the situation was, and put some things in place to help to support them immediately, to kind of stabilize them. You know, there was a baby there that was born in Jamaica, so there were some legal issues in terms of immigration's, you know, status and all that. And gave some food and those type of support. But over the long run, looking at how this can be sustainable is where we would like to eventually go from here. Currently, they were granted asylum status here, those that came at that time, and they are now in a facility that they were moved from the initial facility and moved to another one in I believe it's in St. Anne somewhere.
Right.
They are still, obviously, the situation in Jamaica, and many people say, well, how could we help people, and Jamaicans themselves need help? And this is where I wanted to kind of dig in a little bit more to not just address some of their immediate needs and some other things that we can put in place to help to support them, but the long-term thing. What is the bigger picture? What happened? What is going on? How did we get to be in this situation? How is it that a country, that an island with so many resources, rich with soil, natural healing, plant medicine, beaches, all that is here, why are people unable to feed themselves? And I wanted to have had a background on where this came from, and this is why we're looking into the past. What happened? How does that us who have left Jamaica as economic refugees, as Mr. Patterson will call them, how those of us who have left, and because we're looking for a better economic situation, how are we similar to the Haitian refugees coming to Jamaica now looking for opportunities? Why is Haiti in the situation it is, and why is Jamaica in the situation it is as well? So to give a little bit of background about that, I asked, we had been looking at a situation that happened in Jamaica years ago, in which there had been a complete breakdown in the banking system, and it resulted in significant loss of businesses and just destabilization of the communities as a result. So I've asked Mr. Patterson, the UIC president, who has a background and understanding of how this all unfolded, to join us and give us an idea of what happened, what should have been done, what can be done and should be done, and how we're going to move forward with that. So I'd like to give you an opportunity, Mr. Patterson, to introduce yourself. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for jumping on.
Sure. Sorry for being late. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Finsac, hopefully, but a little about myself. What can I tell you? So I'm a chartered accountant. I guess that's the easy place to start. So my background is in finance. I worked in government as director of finance, overseeing about 25 ministries and departments. I have served as chairman of the board for one of the largest social entrepreneur microfinancing institution, a number of other things. But most importantly, I'm a patriot committed to the work of liberating our people, beginning right here in Jamaica, first and foremost. Karen, anything else you want me to say?
No, that was a great intro. Thank you. I wanted to have shown a little clip, and if you had not had the benefit of seeing or hearing about what Finsac is, I had an interview earlier. Actually, the interview was posted yesterday with one of the victims of the Finsac situation in Jamaica, and she was just sharing her experience with that. And so if you'd like to see that interview, you can go to my YouTube station, Empress Daria, and you'll be able to see that. So that would have created a backdrop for this, but Mr. Patterson is going to kind of give us an idea of what exactly Finsac was and what happened. Can you help us to get an understanding of that?
Sure. I mean, it's a very deep problem, and one that the Jamaican people and every African country should try to understand. I wanted to go into a little bit of a detail, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that tonight. But I'm going to start off by just seeing how far I can go. Sure. I mean, Finsac is a scam that was created by the PNP under the Prime Minister PJ Patterson and his Finance Minister Omar Davis. Decades later, after the problem, the PNP Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller and the Finance Minister Mr. Peter Phillips, or Dr. Peter Phillips, together with the JLP Prime Minister Bruce Golden and his Finance Minister Audley Shaw, down to today, the current Prime Minister Andrew Holness and his Finance Minister Nigel Clark, all of them remain complicit in hiding the results of the Finsac Commission of Inquiry, which means
Can I just interrupt you?
Sure.
I am sure that people are asking, what is Finsac? What happened?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, but I'm giving you some background first, because you have to understand the extent of the problem. If we had a major issue, let's say 3 months ago or 3 weeks ago, it'd be very current. But this one is you're talking a lot of years, from the 1990s to today. And we've had several prime ministers since and several finance ministers since. And we've spent $150 million or more trying to get this report to come forward. So I'm going to tell you what this is all about and why this report is so important to a number of Jamaicans, many of whom are now dying because they were very old. You know, they were senior persons back then. You're talking people in their 60s and 70s who are now, you know, older, and many of them have passed away. And still, the Jamaican people are not aware of what really happened. In fact, I can tell you this. If you find 10 Jamaicans and ask them, what is this Finsac all about? They don't know. Yes. They have heard the term, but they're not sure what has really happened. So tonight I want to walk you through that and help you to understand what really happened. Now, to understand why the PNP did this to us and why the JLP have been complicit in the cover-up, you need to understand the economics behind it, the politics behind it, the monetary and fiscal policies behind it all, and how the adverse incentives of a bad system of governance continues to rob us of billions of dollars each year in various forms of political scams. Now, first, you must understand money and currency and how they differ. It's amazing because you've never heard a Finsac presentation where they tell you need to understand money and currency. I'm sure none of you have heard that before, where somebody says, we're going to talk about Finsac, you need to understand money and currency. Unfortunately, many people do not understand money and currency or even the difference between the two. Let me do a little test here tonight and see if anybody on the platform knows the difference between money and currency. Anybody at all? Do you know the difference between money and currency? Anybody? It's a test, a quiz, a little quiz. Anybody? What's the difference between money and currency? All right. So,
yeah, so tell us.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I didn't know if there was a difference at all. So
all right. So tonight we're going to learn something. Mr. Whitty, you want to learn something tonight, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm ready for you.
All right. So the difference between money and currency. Now, money, as almost everybody knows, is an intermediary that makes it easy for us to trade goods and services without having to do barter, which is very inefficient. If we have to do barter, you and I have to have exactly what the other person wants, and then we can trade. So money makes it easier. Now, money is also a store of value for later use. You know, it is also a measure of how much value has been created or exchanged between the users. So it measures value, and it holds value within the marketplace that we're operating in. So as you and I are doing our business, as we're going through our daily lives, we're depending on money to hold the labor, to hold the production or productivity that we have done, so that we can use that later to buy something else that we want, rather than barter where you have to, you know, find somebody who wants what you have and have what you want. Now, currency is very much like money, but it's inferior in one very important area. It is not a good store of value. Money is a store of value plus all the other things you're used to for money, while currency does everything like money, but it is not a good store of value. The value of money is always eroding, and you have to do a lot of serious things to try to keep up with it. Its volume, that's the volume of currency, can be easily manipulated by those who control its creation and circulation. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a critical thing to understand. If you don't understand it, you cannot be a good investor. I can assure you of that. Because that basic principle underlines investing and how to stay ahead of the market and balance. Now, why am I telling you this to talk about Finsac? Because the people who manipulated Finsac probably understood that better than 99% of the rest of the nation. And so they were able to pull the wool over our eyes, which I'm going to show you how, right? So remember, money and currency are similar in every regards, except that money is a more permanent store of value, while currency is weak when it comes on to storing value and can easily be manipulated by those who control the volume of money and also interest rates. All right, now we're going deeper into this now. The purchasing power or value of a currency decreases with every additional unit of it that is placed into circulation. Without, listen carefully, without a commensurate increase in the productivity or value creation by the people who are using it. So every time you add $1 more of money into circulation, you are decreasing its value if you don't simultaneously add 1 unit of productive value into that economy. So, by example, if there is $20 billion of currency in an economy, and the government goes out and borrows and spends an additional $20 billion into this economy, this new money will reduce the purchasing power of the existing dollars by 50% if no real additional value is added to that economy. Let me see if there's any bright spark in the group. Who understand what I just said? Anybody? Just put up your hand. Just wave. Let me know that you understand.
I think I got it.
Absolutely, yes.
Good. So if the government introduced $20 billion new money into the economy, but we did not increase our productivity in the near, medium, or long term to match that, the value of everybody's previous 20 billion drops by half. Okay. I hope I'm not losing you. Please follow me here. Now,
We're with you.
Sorry?
We're with you.
Good. So you will experience this dilution of your purchasing power as inflation or higher prices like you've seen over the last several months, right? The 1 to 10% at the top of the economic pyramid who get to spend that new $20 billion first, example, the politicians, the big banks, and the big businesses, they will get what I call an unearned benefit upfront before inflation kicks in or trickles down to the typical wage owner. So when you introduce this new money, those who get to spend it first get an unfair advantage, a big value to them, which is taken out of your purchasing power, those who are at the bottom of the pyramid, middle to bottom. Those at the bottom of the economic food chain, the 90% in Jamaica's case, will quietly, without even recognizing it, gradually lose the value of their hard-earned money by the time the 20 billion finds its way into their hands. Inflation or fall in value of your currency is a hidden and cunning form of taxation, which you feel in higher prices, higher taxes, and declining government services, such as poor quality of policing, inadequate roads and infrastructure, deplorable healthcare, an education system that fails over 80% of its students annually. That's what we're facing now in Jamaica, and it's not new. It has been coming, and I'm going to show you why. Now, when the government borrows USD in our name, and let's say they steal some of it and mismanage the rest, right? They are increasing the supply of currency in the local economy without increasing our productivity, because productivity only increases if you have managed that money well so that you get value for the money, meaning life has improved. Yes, go ahead.
In terms of productivity, what would be an example of productivity that would have helped to balance those scales?
Absolutely. Very basic one. If you borrow money and you invest it in education, and the education system actually works to cause your graduates to have the skill levels to be able to produce at an efficient level in the economy, then you would have increased your productivity. If on the other hand, you spend that money, but for whatever reason, the kids still graduate not having any sense and competences and skills, then the money is wasted. You don't have to pay it back, but you haven't got the results. Yes.
And a question, and what about those students who have been educated in our system and leave the island because of their economic refugees?
So we're coming to that. I don't want you to lose the main point here. We're going to come to that.
Okay.
Now, this leads to the inflation that we're talking about, which is made worse by reducing the exchange rate value. When you borrow US dollars into your economy, which Jamaica does a lot of, when you borrow US dollars, you're creating a demand for US dollars by your country, and you're therefore reducing the value of your local currency. So the government, by its constant borrowing of US dollars, is inadvertently reducing the value of your currency, which means when you use that, when you try to buy goods and services now with your currency, your prices are going to be higher because you have weakened the value of your own currency. So that's another key part. Now, to make matters worse, the US dollar borrowed not only causes inflation and contributes to a decrease in our exchange rate relative to the US dollar, but it also, listen carefully, but we're also not able to earn the US dollar required to pay back the principal and interest because our productivity is constantly declining. If you look at Jamaica's exchange rate, it has generally always declined. The value of the dollar is always going down. That's a direct reflection of the decline in our productivity. So today, more than 65% of our labor force is unskilled, meaning our educational institutions have failed miserably. Just the last high school elections alone, 82% of our students failed to achieve 5 basic subjects, including math and English. That means for the next 10, 15, 20 years, these are the students who are not going to be able to produce much in the economy, and we're going to have to deal with it. Now, the government may also borrow locally. Now, this is where we're getting into Finsac now, even more. The government may also borrow locally from banks, businesses, and individuals. This pulls currency out of the productive sector and into the public sector, and thus reduces the amount available to businesses as short, medium, and long-term loans. Just imagine your business wanting to get a short-term loan, liquidity to manage your inventory, medium-term loan to invest in a new system or software system, point of sale system.
I don't want to cut you off, but you're
Sure.
speaking on a level that I'm sure some of our, that's why I want to kind of bring it back home to explaining how it relates to them. I know that this is important, but I think it's on another level that, you know, we can get to it another time. But what's going on with Finsac? What happened?
Break it down.
Yes. So I'm getting to Finsac, but I want you to see this is actually Finsac we're talking about, but you don't yet see it because Finsac is only spoken about of people lost their business and they suffered, but you don't know why. This is telling you why they lost their businesses. The government gets into the business of borrowing not only from international borrowers, also borrowing at interest from local companies, and became very aggressive. So initially, when the PNP government started to do this, to borrow more and more, even locally, so what they did was they left the IMF. So PJ Patterson told us we're going to leave the IMF because the IMF is so bad, right? Now, initially when they did this, everybody was happy. Everybody was cheering. They were happy. And Jamaica got a flush of money coming in. The government was selling bonds, treasury bills, government papers all over the place. But eventually, the system begins to collapse as the private enterprise, starved of credit, becomes unprofitable, while the government becomes even more indebted as it tries to borrow its way out of the mess it's actually creating. The following is a quick overview of how Jamaica followed this unwise path to our detriment. The first big thing, which sets the stage for a future Finsac, happened actually in 1966. The then JLP government borrowed over 20 times the then annual education budget. They got US 9.5 million, which is today equivalent to 92.2 million US dollars to build schools. But they only built half as many schools for twice the cost. So they had a budget overrun of over 100%. This left us with a very high debt, poor schooling, a poor schooling system, overcrowding. The kids just didn't get what they're supposed to get to learn, resulting in a shift system and a very undereducated people. Today, we see that the result of that in the 82% who failed. Now, as such, we did not then, and we still do not now, increase our productivity enough to pay back that debt, thus adding a debt trap upon a debt trap, which grew to over 136% of GDP by 2020. In the 1970s, watch me, that was the 60s. In the 1970s, we doubled down. Yeah, go ahead.
So 1 second.
Yes.
In terms of how that transferred to the people, how did all that borrowing, all that debt, and all the debt that is continuing to accumulate, how does that transfer to the people and the state in which they currently are, where they're unable to afford, food, basic services?
Well, very, very simple. So you are paying back a massive debt, but you don't have the production in your people. The people are not producing high enough to service that debt and still pay for proper schooling, proper healthcare, proper infrastructure, and to fund small, medium, and growing enterprises owned by the people, not the ones owned by foreigners who put their own capital in and own it, but locally owned. That drops down. So now you have more and more people who are underskilled, who are not producing at a level to pay back the debt. And therefore, the little bit of money we have, most of it is going now to paying the debt and not providing public goods and services that would enable our people to do well. So come the 1970s, we actually doubled down on this. We made the mistake in the 1960s under the JLP government. And in the 70s, we made the situation even worse by borrowing again. But we failed to use those funds again to increase productivity.
Okay, and that was going to be my next thing. So then what needed to be, or what needs to be put in place then to whatever this breakdown that has occurred as a result of borrowing?
Right. Well, while wasting an inordinate amount of time, sorry?
Where are we now in regards to the budget of Jamaica, and why are we short in important areas for money to operate? Where are we now in terms of your
Sure.
observation and calculation?
hmm So what we did in the 70s, we wasted a lot of time and funds, and we channeled that energy into fighting each other's as partisan politics. We started fighting very hard. So we created dons, gangs, garrisons, and we became extremely tribal. And we fought like crazy, but not creating any outstanding engineers or entrepreneurs or innovators. Or as soon as we create a few of them, they leave the country because the state of the country isn't good. Brings us to the 80s. In the 80s now, we move away from Michael Manley. Mr. Seaga came in, and the floodgates of borrowing was swung open. The US was more inclined to lend us even more money, and we went deeper and deeper into that. The value of the dollar continued to slide, productivity continued to decline, inflation climbed higher and higher. The average rate of inflation between 1960 and 2023 was 13.4%. Just imagine that. 13.4% average each and every year. So in year one, your cost of living went up 13.4% on average. In year two, you combine that, you're now at 26.8%, and so on. So $100 in 1960, if something cost you 100 in 1960, by 2024, that would cost you $194,000. So in the 90s now, the borrowing binge to escape what? The restrictions. The IMF comes with restrictions. It says you can't spend all over the place. You can't invest in things we don't want you to invest in, which is painful. And you have to run a very disciplined government in terms of a balanced budget and so on. But this also meant giving up lower interest rates for higher interest rates. PJ Patterson said, to hell with that. I'm done with this IMF thing. They're too restrictive. So he borrowed money and paid off the IMF, and now was borrowing freely on the international and the local markets at whatever rates it took to get the money. The rates starting to go up because the more money a country borrows, the lower its credit ratings and the higher the interest rate it has to borrow. This led to a whole lot of borrowing from private banks, local banks, international banks, individuals, home and abroad. Many Jamaicans living overseas started buying treasury bills right here in Jamaica. And so it increased tremendously. Now, this feed into a very serious problem. The small businesses now in Jamaica are competing with the government for loan. This is going to bring in Finsac now. Because they're competing with the government for loan, and the government was paying more and more interest to get loans, the national interest rate kept climbing higher and higher, from 14% to 30% to 50% to 100%. There's no way a small business can survive paying 100%, or medium size, even large business, 100% on their loans. So many of these companies start to fail. Suddenly, interest rates on loans to individuals and businesses were so significant that they became more of a risk. So what happened when it's risky to lend to individuals and businesses? You start to lend only to government. So the situation got even worse. And now 23 banks started to fail because people were withdrawing their monies from the bank for fear that they're going to collapse. The banks could not get the payments from their destroyed or on the verge of being destroyed small businesses. And the government was finding itself in a difficult position because it needed to borrow more money because the people are not producing at a level to pay the taxes that they need to pay for the corruption that had evolved at that time. Eventually, many businesses just failed, started laying off employees, could not buy inventory. We could not pay for imports. So as the business began to fail, 23 banks went under. And they did not expect the government to be what it was, which is a very high interest rate policy government. So the PNP government of the day, having created the mess, started to cast blame on the failing banks and the failing businesses, accusing them of financial mismanagement. And then it created the so-called Financial Sector Adjustment Company, Finsac, which turned out to be even worse than the financial disease that they created. Now, what Finsac did, Finsac was designed to fail the people from the start, as it lacked transparency, it lacked credibility, and it lacked competent oversight. Nobody knew what was going on. Even the companies that they took over, the banks that they took over, the assets that they seized, the people who owned those banks and assets could not get clear reporting as to what was happening, how much they owed, when was it going to be paid, how much. It was just complete chaos. It was simply an extension, though, of the scam that was created in the first place, which created the mess. So a selected few saw an opportunity to benefit from the crisis by eliminating competition and capitalizing on the financial distress of our own people. Instead of a plan to rescue the banks and the businesses, the plan was to completely take over these assets, sell them at a discount, and some people, of course, will buy them back. They will save some of their friends and family and enrich a connected few and sacrifice the vast majority of the Jamaican people and those entrepreneurs that were outside of the connection list. In the words of Ronnie Twaits, this was the biggest transfer of wealth from the poor to the middle class in the history of Jamaica. The government was a part of this scam. They used it to create a fake progress, which many Jamaicans at the time thought they were doing a good job, but it's like you living on your credit card or your line of credit. For the moment that you're consuming the money, it's good, but then the money runs out and you have to start paying it back. So while they were failing the people, failing to manage the nation's finances, and failing to manage the banking sector, they were actually telling the people to log on to progress. They were wiping out jobs and wiping out businesses, 44,000 of them, from which Jamaica has still not recovered. Instead, more and more of our businesses were bought out by foreigners, or assets were bought out by foreigners. But those responsible for wrecking the economy and for destabilizing the banking sector rewarded themselves and the connected few with billions in unearned wealth to this day through the Finsac scam. So in conclusion, the nation lost 44,000 businesses across various sectors. This decimated the entrepreneurial class and thousands of families, while costing taxpayers billions, of which they would never see any benefit. We have not recovered since. The loss of both human and financial capital is being felt even now as the economy continues to be taken over by foreigners. If you look around Jamaica, most of the businesses, substantial businesses, are no longer owned by Jamaicans. They're owned by outsiders. They're not, the banks themselves are afraid to lend to local entrepreneurs. They'll lend for cars, they will lend for houses, but they're not lending for entrepreneurship, which is stifling the country. The JLP education loan of the 1960s that they stole, plus the PNP Finsac scam of the 1990s, plus a myriad of other corruption scandals that we have seen, and some that are yet to be published, have robbed the Jamaican people of at least $2 trillion in unproductive bad debt that we, the people, have been sacrificed to pay back over the last 60 years. A vote for either of these two colonial parties then is a vote for criminals and a vote for criminality and our own demise. They should be arrested, charged, and punished for crimes against the people of Jamaica. That's my quick version of the Finsac.
Love it. Well, it sounds like Jamaicans were just, are the politicians of Jamaica were just borrowing money, having fun, and have no intention of paying back these money on time.
Absolutely.
Or even paying it back at all.
And they're paying it back. The way they pay it back is by not giving the Jamaican people the quality of life they deserve. So, for example, you can live in a community, wherever the community is, and you will be in that community, and the roads will not be fixed for years upon years upon years. So gradually, you can't drive on that road anymore. You can't ride in it as a senior citizen. You can't walk safely on your own road. There's no sidewalks in many communities. So if you're an old woman or old man, you're now in your 70s and you're trying to get to your little house, you're going to get licked down by a car, or, you just can't make it. So that's one. Some communities still don't have light. You might have one light post for a long stretch of road, right? Many schools, there are schools in name only. When you go there, it's in shambles. They have very little in the way of supplies or equipment. The chairs and tables are old and antiquated.
Yes.
The hospitals, there are some hospitals now where newborn babies are on chairs, piece of plastic chair on the side of a building instead of being in a proper crib and facility. So that you don't see it in them because people concentrate on Kingston, but you have 13 other parishes, of which at least 10 of those parishes have miserable conditions that people are living under. Kingston have its own areas where you have the front, which looks nice, and you go behind the scene. Go to Beeston Street, go to Hanover Street, go to Luke Lane in Kingston, and you see people walking over sewage and all that kind of stuff in the 21st century. So the people of Jamaica have paid a dear price for the $2 trillion pretty much stolen by two parties that continues to own our government.
Yes. Well, it's you're talking about quality of life, and you're absolutely right. I watch every day. There's this elderly man who he lives on his own, and he has to make it up rocky roads around the corner, up a hill, no sidewalks, and it's, you know, sometimes the corners are small. People can the wrong timing, and it's even if he were to only get injured, going to the hospital because the care is so poor, something that could be easily remedied has now become a crisis situation.
Think about if he has a walker. Think about a senior citizen in Jamaica. You guys who live overseas, think for a moment about if you were a senior citizen here, and you know you're not as mobile as you used to be, and you want to go outside and walk with your walker. That is an impossibility. Let's say you have a wheelchair, you know, one of those electronic wheelchair. You feel confident, you have a wheelchair. Where are you going to drive it? You're going to drop in some pothole and turn over. There's no proper sidewalk with properly paved. You might have one piece paved, and before you know it, there's a big hole in another piece, or this piece drop off. The country is a mess, people. And we have this false impression because they show you New Kingston or they show you some part of Montego Bay that is nice. But the majority of Jamaicans are living in squalor, even though they see going to work, nicely dressed. They have to be careful how they come out of their yard to walk from their house to go get the taxi or the bus. Their heels might drop off. You understand?
And yet, this is for the situation that is in Haiti. People are coming to Jamaica looking for something better, because they have also been destabilized. And as a people, we're just destabilized. Where the education is not in place, our knowledge of self is not in place. And these are some of the things that you have talked about in terms of, and not just you, but in terms of how we as a people are going to elevate ourselves. We have to really come to know ourselves, to take responsibility for ourselves, the decisions that we make, the things that we do, the communities that we have. So when you're talking, Ronell, about coming together as a community, people supporting each other, these are things that are necessary at this time when, you know, there's a food shortage and a food crisis that's coming on us. When the work that is being done in the community by your organization, does it have a long range plan as to how to support people other than just, hey, let me just break a piece of bread for you? We need a bigger answer. What is the bigger solution that you?
Sorry, is that a question for me?
I was asking Ronell, because they're doing work within the community. Sorry,
Ronell. Okay.
Yes. So what kind of work are you all doing within your community, with the people in your community? And which part of Jamaica are you, by the way?
Well, thanks again. I'm in St. Anne, to be direct. So one of the things we are trying to put in place is a pantry, right? Trying to encourage storing of food. Also, in the process of acquiring like farmland to plant crops, you know, because, you know, even with the food items, it's very, very expensive.
Yes.
You know, and acquiring farmland and stuff like that, where you can plant like long-term crops like banana, cassava, things that does not really require a lot of finances, you know. So those are some of the things that we're trying to put in place.
For you mean in terms of like growing your own food, but you need land on which to do that.
Right. So you know, even for like going to work, the salary, the money that we get, by the time you hit the supermarket, it's all over. Not to mention if you try to go to the food market, you know. So these are some of the things we are trying to encourage and try to get in place. You know, we're as a community, we'd come together and we do the hands-on work and try to, you know, help to maintain ourselves and subsidize, you know, the
Hey,
job.
Sister Karen, one of the key things you said, and it's interesting, and I'm sure Captain Severe can speak to that because he's been in Haiti, and the same situation he's dealing with in Haiti is that knowledge of self coupled with the things that they're doing. So, Captain Severe, can you speak to that in terms of what she touched on, knowledge of self?
Yes, because I wanted to deal with one of the key elements, because we know that type of system, wherever we are, especially our type of Black folks, right? We know every country there's a system over our head, or that's constantly on our back, ripping the resources. Because I was just reading, right? One of the top spending powers is $1.6 trillion. That's one of the spending powers here in the States that Black folks, this is Black folks only, right? They, with that spending power, they are able to do many things, but not in their communities. Our target market should be our communities. It starts in your community, that household. What is being taught in that household, especially in Haiti? When you go there, they have many natural resources, but what happened? What do they do with those resources? The brother mentioned earlier, right? He mentioned how the outsiders come in and they're the ones who own the banks. Then next thing you know, they take over the local markets. I remember visiting Trinidad. I was visiting Trinidad, and one thing that stuck out to me is there was so many Popeye's chicken, Church's Chicken. These are restaurants you find here in America. But when I asked the brothers that was there, hey, take me to a local restaurant where I can enjoy Trinidadian food. You think that was presented to me? No. Popeye's Chicken, Church's Chicken, and they had mega stores, right? But remember, this is a tool of oppression that's constantly being used across the board. Wherever you go, it's the same system. Here in America, the term is only 5 years would a Black-owned business last. Why would you think that would be? Why would you think? This is supposed to be the land with milk and honey, the goals paved in gold, right? Why? The first enemy is our own people. We don't know our value. Remember, I just said something. We have the top spending power, just Black folks in general, $1.6 trillion in spending power. But do we own anything? When I say owning, do we own any banks? No. There's many banks out here, but do you own any of them, right? Even in Haiti, Haiti is known with International Bank. France has taken full control of that. There's French families in there right now, right? So now, I want to just read this scripture, one of the solutions to that problem. First, you must identify we have that power. The brother mentioned it. We have that power. The spending power is in you. The kingdom is within you. But what you going to do with it? What are you going to do with that power? Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1.
Okay, I have that right now.
Get that for me. Because a lot of times, that's what we try to instill into the minds of our people. In order for action to be done, you have to have your constitution. The Bible is our constitution. There's rules and regulation. Every reigning kingdom had constitution to guide them. They had economic laws to guide them. Read that.
So Zephaniah 2:1 says this: gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired.
It said, gather yourselves together, a nation that is not desired. We are a nation that is not desired. Everywhere we go, we are not desired. I don't care if you run to London, all right? We are pushed into the ghettos along with your business. You can run to Netherlands. You are pushed into the ghettos, and so is your business. Okay, so just like when we go ahead, sis. I know you have.
I was gonna ask. In terms of, you're talking about governance, how we govern ourselves. the foundation on which we are going to operate.
Right.
One of the reasons that we are in this country, things are not in order is because the governance is not in order as well. So we do have our spiritual foundation on which we are built and we're standing on, but we need proper governance as well. And so even if we were to, and I know that we have to do some of these things first, we also have to have a governance, a system of government that is going to allow us to fulfill these very things that you're talking about. But if the system of governance that is currently in place does not allow for that to happen, then it creates that instability. One of the challenges I have with the religious institutions, and you know, my family background is from Jehovah's Witnesses, and they don't want to get involved in politics or any of those things. And as a result, we don't have the ability to organize, to put things in place that will make it possible, for example, for people to come back to Jamaica and do business. I'm afraid, setting a business up in Jamaica is almost impossible to do. So if there is no stability there, if we are solely focused on just looking at that piece and not saying, how are we going to bridge this by becoming involved in the governance of our government? How can we bring this forward? So I want to ask question. What is your philosophy in terms of how you work with government? Because in Jamaica, we need an alternative to the current parties that are there. And a lot of people are very afraid of getting involved in things because they're like, oh, the politics, this really has nothing to do with that. It has to do with, if we're participating, then we are the government.
There you go.
Where do you all stand in terms of supporting that type of?
Let me jump in here, Brother Renell, before you respond, because I have to jump off in less than 5 minutes. And I heard what Brother Parkinson said, and I understand from the time that you start to the time you finish what's been going on with Jamaica and the government down there. I also understand as a people what we've been going through. We are a broken set of people. And I'm going to go with Brother Captain Renell and take it from a biblical standpoint, because we are who we are. We are the people of God. And no matter what goes on, a lot of things that goes on in the islands and in Jamaica in particular and in Haiti, it's very spiritual. It's all spiritual. And until we know who we are as a people, just like Marcus Garvey stated, a people without the roots is the same sort of people without a tree without the roots, because we don't know where we're going. We don't know where we came from. There is no root that we stand on.
Right.
And so my contribution this evening, Jamaicans, we always say we're little but we're calawa. That is what men said about us. What does God say about us? Who does God say we are as a people? Are we the son of the right? Are we from the tribe of Benjamin? Are we part of the 12th tribe of Judah? Who are we? Once we can figure this out, Jamaica and all the other 30 Caribbean islands of people like me and you guys will have no problem, because our identity will tell us where we're going. And that is the problem. So I just thank you guys this evening. I have to jump off, but great talk. And Sister Karen, I'll catch you next week.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for coming on, Lewis.
God bless you all. Brother Mike.
You too, brother.
All right, Brother Lewis.
Tavares, bless you guys. And Brother Patterson, it's a pleasure.
All right.
Take care. All the best.
All right. Thank you so much.
Now, I wanted to say something, because he said something very powerful. Every nation, and you got to understand, family, politics is someone's religion. It is not our religion. It's a form of religion. Politics is a form of religion. It is not our religion. It is not the chosen people's religion. That's why Lord warns us not to dabble into that realm of politics. Our source of power, everything that we need is here in the Bible. And I just mentioned earlier, there's economic laws on how we dealt as a community, right? I'm gonna ask a question because you have different communities. The Chinaman, he doesn't need to worry about voting. He knows his power is in his unity with his people. He'll go into a certain community. He'll have 10 of his family members. He'll camp out there. They'll have one plan, one mind. And this community, we want to build a restaurant in this community. And guess what? They don't need to vote. They don't care about IMF. They don't need to worry about that. All they need to do is follow the rules and regulations, buy up the property. Everybody of the members of that family go out and work. They'll bust their ass and then afterwards come back, bring their resources together, and then they'll go and conquer. That's exactly how they roll. Was there any politics involved in that? No. There was only one mind, one mission, right? That's the frequency we need to be on. Not tapping into politics. Lamentations 4:17, real quick. I want us to understand that. Our power, our source, we've been trying it every other way, okay? We've been doing it every other way, but dabbling and finding out, right? What is our power? What is our source? What is our knowledge? Read that for me. Listen
Ronell,
to one of the
you got that,
warnings
Ronell?
our
Yes,
forefathers
sir.
got. Read.
Lamentation chapter 4 and verse 17.
Mm-hmm.
As for us, our eyes as yet fail for our vain help.
Mm-hmm.
In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not help us.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 18.
Stop.
They hunt our steps.
They hunt our steps, meaning there's nations that have systems in place to keep us oppressed. Every chance, I was just reading where Jamaica's #1 source of income is tourism. That goes for a lot of the islands. It's tourism. Okay. Now, guess who you think is going to control that? Who you think when Haiti has an island called Labadzi? How many people know how did Royal Caribbean obtain Labadzi? It was sold, right? It was sold by the president of Haiti, okay? And then it was rented out afterwards, after they realized, listen, this is the main tourist attraction to Haiti. But who owns the island? Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean owns that island. Now, if Haiti had possession of that, what benefit would it be for the nation of Haiti right now? Huh? What would the work system be? Okay? The resources. But we have been divided and conquered. The #1 military strategy that's been used all over the world, especially to our people, divide and conquer. We need to bring our resources together. Stop dividing. It's not going to be in these churches. These churches have failed us. How long has the Church Institute been working? It's a tool used against us.
So let's, if we were to talk about, and I'm going to kind of bring this to a conclusion soon, but what I'd like to bring forward is this. In terms of self-identity within our colonial environment that our schools have been immersed in, within the culture of Jamaica has been the infiltration of these influences. So when we look at our the heroes, our national heroes, they're representatives of that have no interest for the Jamaican people. So for example, our Norman Manley and our Buster Manley have been having an issue with them being our representing other national heroes, because their only contribution to Jamaica was to put a system in place that will keep our people in bondage. Whether spiritually or not, there needs to be things that we are allowed to do, the freedoms or sovereignty that we're unable to exercise right now because of that oppressiveness. And so unless we do something other than, yes, we're into the scripture, we're doing what we need to do, but outside of that, there needs to be the coming together under some type of organized structure that we can put things in place that will benefit our people. How can that happen outside of the word that we use, such as politics? How will that take place if we're not going to be involved in the the governance structure of our country?
Okay, so beautiful question. In order, because remember these nations, they use many tactics against us. In order to get the upper hand, the Lord Christ, he gave us this instructions. He let us know to be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove, right? In order that we have to understand, we understand who's our enemy. To understand your enemy, he has many trains, many avenues to destroy us. So it's okay. We have people and brothers in different offices who work side by side with their oppressors or work side by side with their enemies, right? But the mistake our people do is they get assimilated to the point they forget the mission. They forget the point of delivering their people or giving some type of aid to their people. They'll get to these high positions, they'll gain the wonderful wisdom, they'll go to the elite schools, but one thing that they forget is their people. All right. You have many nations that will send their kids to Harvard, Yale, beautiful Ivy League schools, but they know the mission. They remember the oppression of their people, and they'll bring that wisdom and knowledge back to their people. Cuba has a great program, a medical program where they deploy their students, okay, throughout the whole world, help out. They have a lot of them in Haiti too. They have a lot of them, and then afterwards they'll do their time in that country and come back, bring that wisdom and understanding back to their people. You understand? So that's the key point. We must move in that same variety. Get that for me in Romans 12. How we deal. It's not to hate. It's not to hate, but be understanding. Hey, listen, this is not for me. But if I have to infiltrate, if I have to learn the proper logistics and bring that information to my people, I'm gonna do it. All right. So that's the key point. We encourage family members, especially parents. You have your children going into these schools, be very mindful. Make sure you train up your children, let them know, I'm sending you to school to be a engineer. Once you become an engineer, we have a community to build. I'm sending you to be a doctor. We need to build a clinic, okay? So this is the whole purpose. As a nation, we constantly forget that goal. We forget that. We'll take our oppressors' knowledge all day long, but then we have an envy that climbs up into our souls, and then we want to be joined unto them. And then now we become another victim. All right, we become an enemy to our own nation. So that's what happens. Can we get this scripture real quick before your next question? Get that Romans chapter 12. So we understand that point. It's not to, but be knowledgeable of those tools, which is politics. All right, there's celebrations, because even in their celebrations, when we begin to bask in their Christmas holidays, you know how much money is being spent on their wicked holidays, which is against the Bible, right? Some billions of dollars is being spent. Christmas, New Year's Eve, birthdays, and they have the stores ready for us to spend their money. Okay, that's why our communities have nothing. Even their clubs, you have clubs lined up everywhere, ready to spend your money. Okay, but we have to.
So question. So what is then? What are some things that you're doing? And if someone wanted to get involved in what you all are doing here in Jamaica, how do they get in touch with you, Ronell?
Okay.
What do they need to do?
Okay, so we have an organization, Israel United in Christ. Again, we're an organized nation. The goal is to change the minds of the people, unify that chosen nation with the guidelines that is documented in the Bible. Remember, you can't go wrong. It's been passed down from generation to generations. Our oppressors tried to use it against us. So now we have a system where we have a congregation where you can come across the world. There in Jamaica, we have about, I think, 4 schools. Right?
Yes.
Where you can come.
You have what schools?
We have about 4 schools or 5 schools. I know we have one in Montego Bay. We have one in Spanish Town.
Kingston.
Where's the other one, Officer Ronell?
Mandeville,
Portland,
and Otriel.
There we go. So we have a place where the man, the black man, the black woman can come, learn these tools, and then go back home. Start with your children. Start with husband and wife. It's those basic things that we miss out on. The structure of the family. All right. That little thing of husband and wife is being exploited. Once that
there are ways in which government and private sector or faith-based organizations can work in partnership. They have many of those faith-based programs in the U.S. So there is a way that there is, because obviously the things that you're talking about are important. It's not the responsibility the political system to raise our families. So there is our spiritual entities in place to provide that and facilitate that.
Right.
And then there are the other aspects of our lives that we need to deal with, that we need to be involved with as well, to make sure that we can carry these things out.
There we go.
I'm going to, Brennan, I want you to kind of, if you can give folks an opportunity to know how they can actually get involved in some of the things that you're doing. I'd like to share that, and I'm going to ask Mr. Patterson to kind of sum things up in terms of what, if people who would like to get involved in some type of community activity that can help to stabilize their communities, what they can do. So, Ronell?
Right. So the first thing, they can go to israelunite.org, and they can look up the contact me area. Let's see, we have our information posted there. So the first step is to reach out to us, and then you come and visit us. All right. So when you come and visit us, then we can take it from there.
Okay, great. So Israel United in Christ.
Israel United in Christ.
You
can actually go online and
.org.
Yes.
You can see everything what we about, all the missions that we ever done, how we deal, even in the community. We deal with community cleanups, youth violence. We just did one in the Bahamas, Nassau, Bahamas. We meet with the delegates. We met with the Prime Minister. So we actually find ways to deal with the violence. Actually show the young youth how to be hands-on. You learn a trade, and then bring that same skill back into your community. So we have the Young Prophets program, where we actually take the young men, we have young daughters of Sarah as well, showing them proper etiquette. So we do a lot. We have many little programs within our sanctuaries.
Great.
Hey, Sister Cat, I would like to read just one quick thing that our leader, Bishop Nathaniel, he's taught us when it comes to these faith-based organizations. I'm gonna read it real quick, James 2 and verse 18.
Yes.
Because a lot of times our people get caught up in faith-based, spiritual. We're not about that. This is what we're about. James 2 and verse 18. It says, "Yea, a man say, thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show my faith by my works." Verse 20. But thou will know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead. So we're about the work. We're about buying land for our people, building our communities up. That's what we're trying to build right there in Jamaica. So the thing with these organizations, we ain't just faith-based. We faith in works, and without the work, without putting our hands to the plow and buying property for our people, it's not going to work. Because the Bible don't teach that. The Bible teaches that we're supposed to get out there, build houses, grow food, which I think a brother in Portland has a farm. So we're trying to do these things for our people under keeping God's commandments. Because to get the blessing, we must live the way God said live. We can't do these things and then, I'm out committing adultery. I'm out fornicating. It's not going to work.
One of the things that I think that sometimes religion does is, we find things that divide, because many of the things that you're talking about doing are things that we all do. So in terms of doing the work, the idea of self-sacrifice is something that I have, and if we're going to talk about then, for example, Yeshua, who did that and was the example for that, that is something that Mr. Patterson has done on behalf of the Jamaican people. So when the government was going to make it mandatory for every Jamaican to take a shot, it was he who put himself in a position and led the community to make sure that their personal rights were not violated. Whether on a religious basis or whatever, we had to deal with that in the United States as well. So when we're talking about the things that people are doing, we're all doing our own work. We have a body, you have a head sometimes, you have a hand and a finger, we have organs, and it is the entire body that works together that makes things that we're doing possible. So had it not been for someone, for what Mr. Patterson had done, then things would have been different, and what he continues to do on behalf of the Jamaican people. So whether we want to call it politics or whatever, when someone is going through and he still has dealing with the courts because of the arrest that he sustained as a result of standing up on behalf of the Jamaican people. And now he's saying, you know what? We're going to take back our country, and this is how we're going to do it. So I'd like to give him an opportunity to kind of sum up what he would like to say and share, and how those who would like to also serve in a different capacity, how they can do that.
That's great. Great.
Sorry, is that me?
That's you, Mr. Patterson.
Okay, so
sorry.
sometimes it's a bit low. I was listening very closely to what my brothers are saying, and it got me thinking. I was looking in my mind on all the kind of stuff that's going on. I've had the privilege of working with a number of countries. Interestingly, 120 countries in terms of my global activities. And one thing I notice is that in every single nation, there are all kinds of different religions. There are some people who are Buddhists, some who are Hindu, Muslim, Christians, different variety of Christians, Hebrew. But the one thing that I find interesting is that at the end of the day, it all comes down to people being organized, being productive, having a clear vision. And these gentlemen here, they clearly have a vision for where they want to go. And I applaud you for that. And I'm also mindful, though, that there are so many other religious persuasion or even philosophical persuasion or spiritual persuasion. And so my hat goes out to all the people who are doing different things different ways. So, for example, my Rasta brothers, one of the stories I really admire, I'm not a Rasta, but I admire the Rasta faith or belief system. And I remember Leonard Howell and what he did at Pinnacle and how the system crushed him. And it sounds a lot like what these brothers are trying to do as well. But then there's also the issue of politics and what it means, because politics always exists wherever you have more than one person. The moment we have to share something, the pie may be a land, an island, or a nation. And the more people you have in that space, the more politics you have, because now we have to figure out how do we coexist. And it's kind of dangerous, for example, if let's say one person in the pie says, my way is the way, and the rest of you must submit to my way. You can have some serious outcomes. You can have some serious religious wars or whatever wars. But politics allows you to negotiate and find a way to navigate. So, for example, my brothers here, let's say they buy a piece of land. And then the government comes to them and says, well, we want your land because we want to build a highway through this. You may really want your land. You want to keep your land. You've planted trees, you have nurtured it, but they're saying, we want your land. And then they point to a section of the Constitution that says, if you don't agree to sell them your land at fair value, that they stipulate, you get an appraiser, and the appraiser might even be paid off by them, and the appraiser sets a value and say you need to buy that. What do we now do? Now, if it's me, I'm going to fight if I want to keep my land. I'm not going to walk away from it. But that becomes political because now you have to deal with it. Yeah. Maybe there are surrounding communities. Maybe you have your land here and there are more communities and they don't like what you're doing on your land. Maybe you do certain rituals that they find reprehensible. Maybe you have your services on Saturday at a certain time and the noise level, they find it, unacceptable. Now you have a political situation because you're going to have to negotiate how to deal with this. So the UIC recognizes the need for what we call good governance. And a part of good governance to us means protecting your right to worship as you see fit, and your right to be a sovereign individual and to create even a sovereign space for yourselves. So let's say many of you come together as the what is it called again? The Israel. What is it called? The group
Israel United in Christ.
Israel United. So you say, okay, we want to have this area, and we're going to buy it free and clear, and we're going to set this up. You, under a UIC system of governance, you have that right and that privilege, provided you do not use force or fraud to infringe on somebody else. And the Rasta has that right, and the Muslim has that right, and the atheist have that right, and the black has that right, and the white has that right, and the yellow has that right, whoever they are. But governance is so important because without it, we can become quite tribal and destructive to one another. So the UIC is here to defend the rights and freedoms of all Jamaicans and all people. The problem you might have, though, is that let's say some members of society decide that they're not prepared to fight for their rights. And so they now abdicate that responsibility and place it on others and say, you go and fight for my rights, but I'm not willing to join you to fight for my rights. Now, let me be very practical here. Let's say not too long from now, there's another pandemic or pandemic, and the government decides that they are going to mandate the injections of all persons. Everybody must be injected. Doesn't matter whether you live in the hills or on the plains, whether you're male or female, and whether you have this religion or that religion. It's mandatory. And they make an argument. The argument is this virus is so dangerous that you will involuntarily transmit it to somebody else. And we can't afford for you to do that. So the only way to solve the problem is for us to inject every man, woman, and child. Now we're all now engaged in a political situation. Do we respect the authority of the government to do that to us? Or do we believe we have some inherent personal liberty that says it's my body and therefore it should be my choice? Do we give up that bodily autonomy, or do we fight for the right to claim that sovereignty and use it to preserve our existence? Because it could be an existential threat. And this is where, back in 2021, when I led the march, I had to spend time with so many different groups, different philosophical groups and religious groups, and say, listen, you need to fight this fight. We must fight for the right to be free men and women. And we cannot afford to leave that to somebody else. It's our duty and our responsibility, I believe, to all fight the good fight for good governance. We don't have to fight for things like my party to win power for the sake of winning power. But we must fight for the right to preserve our sovereignty, to preserve our freedom. I'm sure that during the time of Nani of the Maroons and Sam Sharp and Paul Bogle and others who we don't even know their names, they had to put aside various things and feelings that they may have, because if they didn't, the British were coming, and they don't care what religion you have. If you are in their way, they're going to cut you down and take what they desire. When they went to the shores of Africa, they didn't care whether you are from the region of Ghana or from the region of Central Africa or from the region of North Africa. All they cared about is that they wanted human cargo to fulfill their economic objective, and they will get it by any means necessary. They don't care if you prayed or if you didn't pray. They don't care if you believe in God or you didn't believe in God. All they care about is to satisfy their insatiable appetite to capture and enslave human cargo. And we must have a similar mental construct that when it comes to our freedom, nothing will stand in the way. Nothing at all. Because without freedom, nothing else matters. So that's my contribution tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So with that, I wanted to thank you all and say, listen, we're all on the same battlefield. We're all have, I think, at the end of the day, the same objective, and it is doing the best that we can do for our people and doing our part whatever that part may be, we're going to fulfill that. And however we can come together to do that, we can do that. I'm working with both you and the UIC to help our whether it is on the battlefield of the fighting for good governance for people, or it is on behalf of the Haitians who have come aboard and their rights are being violated. I don't have the luxury of saying I can't do this because I see injustice happening. I'm going to do it. And that's what I am committed to doing at any cost. And so I think we're all there, and I know the work that you're all are doing in your own ways. And I want to thank you for doing that. I thank you for stepping out on behalf of the Haitians, Ronell, and the support that we're getting from those branches in the U.S. and in supporting our brothers and sisters who have come across the seas for help. There are ways in which you can help. So once again, we'll IsraelUnitedInChrist.org to get involved. And Mr. Patterson, if people want to get involved with the movement here to make sure that we maintain our rights and our freedoms here in Jamaica, how do they get involved?
You can go on to uicjamaica.com and you can register, you can volunteer, you can donate. And we're looking forward to working with all Jamaicans and even non-Jamaicans to advance the cause of freedom and liberty here in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, Africa, and the world.
True. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any final words before we go, gentlemen? Captain Severus, anything before we go? Any final words? Ronell?
Oh, yes. No, I just wanted to say thank you again for allowing us on the platform and to share our mission. Okay, we just pray we can work together to get some solutions for those refugees and even the brothers and sisters that's actually in Jamaica as well.
Yes.
Okay, so we want to thank you. Also, I wanted to share any more questions or concerns on who we are and what we stand for. You can go ahead and visit us again on IsraelUnite.org.
Very good. Thank you. Captain Mike, anything?
No, just want to thank you too as well. Look forward to working with you. Like Captain Severus said, we're working with you all over the world. Africa, Ghana, Haiti. We are ready to put the work in for our people. So thanks again. Great. It was a great platform, great conversation, and hopefully we can continue the great work on.
Will do. And I know I've had the opportunity because we have made that trek together, Officer Ronell, to visit nations and have brought things there as well. And we're now working on putting in place an economic program that will help them to become self-sustaining so that their activities and the things they're doing will kind of be able to sustain them rather than, just giving the bare necessities. So any final words before we conclude?
Yeah, thanks for having us on, and we're all the same people from Haiti to the Americas. We all came on the same boats. We all have the same oppressor,
Yes.
So we need to find common ground, as we mentioned first. It goes with knowing who we are, coming back to the Most High, and then we take it from there. So thanks.
Great, thank you. And thank you again for being on with us, Mr. Patterson, and for sharing, giving us a little bit of education about, how the financial system works. And happy to be aboard to work with the UIC in the capacity that I'm doing, and happy to be on board with the Israel. It's funny because the acronym is almost the same.
UIC and UIC.
So I'm working with both to achieve the goal of liberating our people. Thank you all again for coming, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right.
Good night, everyone. Take care.
All right. Thanks.
All the best.